Good morning, everybody. I know we said that a
Hey,
couple of times, but as people come in, we'll say it each time somebody comes in. Good morning, Tammy. Okay, so we're here again this morning. I just, we wanted to, again, draw attention to just a couple of changes as we go through. As we know, this group was new. We know how impacted your schedules are with meetings. And so we're really trying to be flexible and sort of responsive to what comes up in our meetings. And it seems like, we're trying to guess maybe. We'd love more feedback from you just about being responsive to your data needs. And so what we've decided to do a little bit is just, we have a few more meetings on the schedule. We did shorten the meeting time from 9 to 10 so that you could make a 10 o'clock meeting if you needed to. But we are going to start, if it makes sense and some kind of training can be done within the meeting hour and you have this time structured and set apart, that we would bring somebody in to do a little bit of training. And then occasionally we'll have this meeting time set up as consultancy time where you could come in if you're having some issues with some of your data systems and you need support on that. If you'd like to bring some data that you're kind of like, what would be the best way to visualize this, or you just want some feedback on some data that you need to present to your board or whatever that happens to be, this would be potentially a structured time for that. And then of course, questions, answers, recommendations, anything like that. So hopefully we're just, like I said, again, just trying to keep this time on your guys' calendars set aside. And when there are new things ready and set up to show you, we'll have like the similar format of what we're doing here so that we can connect. When there's just not that kind of thing, there's not enough time in the day to make those things happen, then we'll do some of these other things. So if that sounds good to you, then we'll just kind of move forward. We'd love some feedback from you on that. You can email us or drop anything into the chat right now. But we'll go ahead and jump in. Javier, I will hand it over to you.
all right. Last week I had a chance to attend one of the meetings that I get to go to, and there was quite a bit of information that we thought might be, maybe you guys are privy to already, but would be of interest to you all. A few things just coming down from the state. As you guys know, the federal waiver for last year's data was approved. What that means is that, like, all the accountability stuff that we typically have to contend with, that's all kind of suspended for the time being. But part of that waiver also requires a release of a lot of that data. And so in the last couple of weeks, we've actually seen quite a few releases of that data, including the college and career indicator, and things like that, graduation. So that data we can actually access. We'll actually take a peek at some of those a little bit later on in the session. But there's no new state indicators that are going to be produced for this past year's data. As far as DA and CSI, I think you guys maybe already know, like, there's no new eligible schools that'll happen. But a question was posed if anybody can come off of the CSI list if they were there for grad rate, since grad rate was actually kind of posted. And the state didn't really have an answer, but they said if anybody qualifies, like, they would probably do that. But everybody who's already in DA and CSI, like for the most part, they'll kind of remain. One of the data sets that won't be included is chronic absenteeism, because like that got really truncated based on the school closures that happened last March. So that's not going to necessarily be reported on the CDE website or published. The suspension report's going to come via DataQuest supposedly this week. And then CDE is going to recommend an addendum to exclude college and career indicator for this coming year's dashboard, which is kind of an interesting one, except once you start thinking about it, like, since most of the seniors that are graduating didn't take a CASP last year, it effectively kind of guts a lot of the different ways for students to qualify for college and career. So something to kind of think about for this group, since you guys are all secondary, um, what that might mean, what implications that might have in terms of any local reporting that you guys might do to your own boards, to the community. Um, Much of that will still be in place, but the college and career indicator will likely be suspended for next year. Let's see what else. CSI is going to get 5 years. ATSI also gets an additional year. And then as we kind of think about what this last year did, Heather and Lori and I were having a conversation yesterday, like certain elements of the dashboard, mainly because there's 2 years required to produce an indicator. In the case of the EL progress indicator, that one requires 2 years to produce 1 year's worth. So you need 3 years worth of data. Some of these data sets are essentially like won't come back online for a few years. So 2023 for certain elements in some cases. So one thing that the state did mention is that they might be bringing back the LCFF snapshots in lieu of a dashboard. That might mean more to some of you than it does to me at this time. I have to do a little digging to figure out what those used to look like when they produced those. But they feel pretty confident that while they'll still be collecting and publishing much of the data, like as far as using it for accountability, like that's not necessarily the intent. So rest assured, I know like some folks have still been, you know, like what are our CASP scores going to look like? Like it's going to look kind of crazy. A lot of students have been impacted pretty significantly by everything that's been going on this year. The intent right now is still to deliver a CASP, but the accountability metrics will still be suspended. There have been some adjusted blueprints that have been approved. They kept saying available, but we never got like a straight answer as far as like where they were available. So as soon as we find those, we'll get those out to you guys, because it is a shorter version of the Smarter Balance English and Smarter Balance math assessment that students will be taking. And there's going to be obviously a lot of variables to contend with as some of the schools kind of come back in person, either partially or in full. You may have students testing in person with a bunch of like added restrictions, testing remotely, and trying to figure that out. Maybe a combination of the two. It just kind of depends on where your district is at that time. And so one of the things that was offered, and we kind of took them up, we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but when we, like what that remote testing looks like, what it feels like, what the student kind of engages with is something that a lot of people are curious about. And generally sandbox type environments only give you a limited view of what that could be or look like. And so next session, we've invited somebody to come and kind of demo with actual student, like they're not real students, but they're student accounts. So basically anything and everything that students can do, can see, you guys will get a chance to interact with. But we have Bob Martin, who has agreed graciously to come and take us through what the look and feel like is of that remote assessment. So additionally, the LPAC field test, the alternate LPAC field test is postponed. The operational field test will happen in 2021-22. They are looking at locally determined alternate assessments, and the testing window is starting February 1st till the end of the year. There seemed to be like a different level of like, let's kind of do some things with the LPAC because obviously that affects individual students, whereas the Smarter Balance test tends to kind of like, you know, it gets aggregated and reported. It kind of affects the school more than it does the individual student. But those are some things that we thought we'd share with you guys. There's also, and I think you guys have all received, or your districts have all received notice from Superintendent Heyer. The CCEE is gathering data about county health orders, how many students are back in person and how many students are still learning remotely. We attended a webinar on Friday, and you go to a site and you report a percentage or how many students are learning through each mode, and it's like a every 2-week requirement. But just hoping that everybody here has gotten word. The first reporting window was on Monday, and the next one will be 2 weeks from now. But more to come on that. Hopefully that came through for everybody. That was a lot of things. So I'll kind of pause for questions, acknowledging the fact that like I might not be able to give you too many details, but I will, if you guys are interested, kind of post my notes. We'll get it to you guys in the post meeting wrap up if that is your interest. I'm gonna kick it over. Oh, there's the thing. So our next session will have that guest who will take us through what that remote assessment environment looks like for the students, and should be able to answer in pretty good detail a lot of the questions about like questions and concerns you might have about remote testing for Smarter Balanced and things like that. We do encourage you guys just to invite people. We will probably be casting a little bit wider of a net than our normal secondary data work group for this particular meeting. We'll probably invite testing coordinators from all of our districts. So if you know folks that would benefit from being privy to this information, by all means, help us get the word out. And I think this goes to Heather.
Yes, so in the agenda, as usual, we have linked the core uploading status document. There hasn't been a lot of movement on that, so it's pretty much the same as it has been, but as usual, please just check it and make sure that you have all of your files in. There are still a few here and there that are outstanding, and we should be getting a more up-to-date look this afternoon, or I guess after this meeting, from CORE. So hopefully some of those have been resolved. Their data quality report that we can look at has been down for a little bit, so I haven't been able to check if things that were submitted have been processed fully. But definitely any of those files that are just highlighted in yellow and don't have a check mark in them at all, those are still missing. So please check that, and you have a link to all the uploading resources, just all the typical things that we go over. And so I'm going to go into some new Tableau tools that we have created. One of them is just an update that you've already seen, but since we last met, we've created a few new items, and that's been spurred by this new college readiness project that we have going on called CVNIC College Ready. It's just getting started, and there may be a few of you in the room who are aware of this, you college and career directors. So we may get into that a little bit at the end, maybe take some questions if you guys are interested in information about that. But I'm going to go ahead and get into Tableau and kind of walk you guys through a couple of these new dashboards. If I can share.
You need to share screen? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. And this. So apologies, my camera is over here, but what I need to look at is over here. So I'm going to be looking over here. So Javier is going to go over this new one in a little bit, but I am looking at these three at the moment. This is probably the biggest one, the newest one. If you were in our session at the counselor conference on Monday, you probably already saw these. So here's a refresher, but for anybody who wasn't there, this dashboard looks at college going rates and then enrollment rates for the three various institution types: community college, CSU, and UC. And this data is available statewide. So anybody in the state can access this and look at their own data. It has everything in it. These big black boxes at the top are actually buttons. So if you click them, you'll get extra information. But so the way that this works is that if you hover over any county in the state, it gives you a little extra information about college going rates, how many students actually enrolled in college, and then the breakdown of where exactly they're going. Typically, in pretty much all of our counties, we see that the largest group is the group of students who go to community college. And then the second largest group is the group that don't go to college at all. And then there's usually a small band that maybe go out of state, and then a little bit larger band that go to our UCs and our CSUs. So if you click onto one of these counties, and I'm going to click Tulare County, of course, it takes you into a new dashboard where you can kind of drill in a little bit further. So this is looking at college going rate for Tulare County for the past 4 years. If you hover over any of the data points, you get that, that extra breakdown that we saw on the other screen, but for each year, so you can see how it's changed. Over on this side, you can select one student group that you want to look at, or you can select multiple so that you can compare different student groups. So here we see that we have more female students than male students attending college, and that's pretty much been the trend for the past several years. And again, you get that further breakdown when you hover over. And then over here along the side, these are also buttons. So if you click on either of these, you can drill into the district level information or the school level. For both of these, you would need to go over here to the filter bar and find your district. This has every single district, every single school in the state. So I would suggest using this search bar to search for your school or district. And then the same thing, you can select any student groups that you want to look at, and it will bring them all up so that you can compare them, how things have been going over the years. This little gray box down here will take you back to where you started at the map. And then you can go and do the same thing for community college enrollment, for CSU enrollment, and for UC enrollment. And as you see, you get a little information about the state as a whole as you go. So obviously we see these numbers change quite a bit. 36% typically go to community college, 12% usually go to CSU, and about 7% go to UC. And again, if you hover over any county, you'll get a little extra information related specifically to that county. And then if you click in, you go into a new dashboard where you can just keep drilling down even further. So I hope you'll take a little time to explore that. The next one, this one we've already looked at in previous meeting, but this one got a makeover from Dr. Stephanie Evergreen. I don't know if any of you were able to attend her workshop, but it was excellent. And before she came to do her workshop, she asked us to give her some of the visuals that we had created so that she could sort of rework them and make them function a bit better. So she tackled this one, and it was a slight change, but it makes a big difference. So she just stacked all these bars so that you can see these subsets of this whole group. So the main bar is the group of students who applied. And then the next bar within it is the number of those students who actually got admitted. And then the smaller group, the smaller bar inside is the number who actually enrolled. So if anyone hasn't seen this before, this is for Tulare Kings. This is not a statewide dashboard, it's just for us. So you would, it goes by school, not district. So you would select your school, select a student group, but the student groups on this dashboard are limited to the groups that UC and CSU actually tracks information for. So it's much more limited to just a few of the ethnic groups instead of having, you know, Foster and EL and things like that. But once you've selected what you want to look at, then as you hover over each year, this donut over to the side will change and let you know what percentage of graduates were actually eligible for a UC or CSU that year. And then you can just kind of work your way down the bars to see how many of those students actually applied, admitted, and enrolled over the past 10 years. You can see how things have trended. Up in the corner, these boxes are again buttons. So this dashboard is for UC application trends. When we click the button, we go to CSU application enrollment trends. This one functions in the exact same way. It just looks at CSU applications. And then on this dashboard, this one combines CSU and UC enrollment because we can't really look at this in terms of applications because students can apply to multiple campuses. They can apply to UCs and CSUs at the same time. So those numbers would overlap. But when they enroll, they can only enroll in one university. So we can definitively say like how many students have gone to UC or CSU anywhere within either system. So that's what this number shows you is out of all the graduates from whichever school and whichever student group and whichever graduating class you select, you can see the total number of, the total percentage of graduates who enrolled in either system for that year. And then you get a little breakdown of that in like actual numbers instead of percentages over to the side. And then this last piece just sort of looks at UC applications and UC application enrollment and admits specifically. You can select school, select a year and a student group as usual, but it will show you where students are applying. And then if you use this little, it's a scroll bar. So if you just click this button and go to the side, right now it's on applied. So now we see where students actually admitted and then where they eventually enrolled. And so we just found this interesting because, you know, when they're typically when they're applying, they're, you know, applying all over the state, you know, north to south. But then as we get down to where they actually enroll, it gets, you know, closer and closer. Typically, they end up at UC Davis or UC Merced. So we were just kind of curious to see like how far away from home are our students going when they're applying? Are they, you know, dreaming really big and dreaming really far? And then when it actually comes time to enroll, are they sticking closer to home? And generally that trend seems to be true. As we see down here in this box, typically Artillery King students, they either go to UC Davis, UC Santa Barbara, or UC Merced, which are generally the closest UCs that we have. And you can use this button to go back to the beginning. And then the last dashboard is this one, which is kind of similar to the last one, but it calculates the distance from any district of origin that you select. So it'll show you the distance to any of our local community colleges and then every CSU and UC in the state. So if we selected, say, Woodlake, now all these distances are from Woodlake specifically. So if a student went to California State University, Fresno, they would have to go 44 miles. If they wanted to go to a UC, our nearest UC is UC Merced, so they would have to go 98 miles. So the point with this dashboard is to illustrate the fact that if our students want to go to a four-year university, they either have to commute long distances or they have to move entirely. And either one of those things just increases costs and challenges and burdens for our students. So we just kind of wanted to explore, exactly how far are our students going? The ones who, end up at UC Davis, as we see, is a pretty popular UC. They have to go 206 miles from Wood Lake. So essentially they have to move there and either live on or off campus. And like San Diego State University, 276 miles. Humboldt, which is the farthest north you can go, is 408 miles. And this just means that, it's difficult for our students to get there, and it's difficult for our students to get back, say on a winter break or something. Are they able to actually come home and visit, and how challenging is that, etc. So as always, these dashboards are here for you all to explore. Please bookmark this page because we're constantly adding things to it. And feel free to share it because this is all publicly available. The data is publicly available, so it's not protected in any way. It's not identifiable. And I'm gonna stop share. And if anyone's got any questions, you can feel free to unmute or drop in the chat, but I will hand it back over to Javier and Lori. You muted, Jav. There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Those dashboards are looking really fantastic. Anything, Lori, before I jump into this that you wanted to kind of speak to?
In regards to the Tableau, every time I see it, I'm always just like, that counselor, like impressed feeling. I just feel like there's so many uses to this, not only just for looking at, really thinking through different ways to support, but I do think it would be a powerful tool to show students, have conversations with families. I'm sure you guys in your role can think of a lot of different ways that this can be used, not only to boards, but any of your just administrative groups or planning when you're looking at how your kids are doing. I don't know. I think it's really amazing. So I can't say that enough.
Yeah, and we do get a lot of insights and ideas and like refinements from conversations with you all. Anytime we talk to a district, we feel like we get very, very specific requests that are really actionable. Like it's really hard to kind of guess what's the best way to produce something that's going to be helpful to people. But when you talk to the people that actually might make use of these, that's when like you're like, oh, okay, that's the way we should go. So by all means, give us feedback. If you have requests, please make them. Right now, we're still kind of limited in terms of like what data we have access to. So we generally have access to the publicly available state data. Yesterday, Lori shared some things with us that were coming out of like an SIS, and like that gets like the nitty gritty day-to-day stuff that a lot of y'all have, but like having access to that is like not something that we have right now. But I know that that's what a lot of y'all have been requesting. And so we'll continue to kind of think about how we make like just the deluge of data that you guys generate on a day-to-day basis, like usable. Speaking of making something usable, the College and Career Indicator was a data set that was just released about a week ago. There was a private preview about 2 weeks ago, and I think it came out either last week or the week prior. And so, of course, we dumped the data into Tableau, and this is a very simple dashboard, not nearly as intricate as the others that Heather just shared. And so there's two ways for you guys to access it. The first way is to go to our TCOE visualization site and grab it there. The other way is to go to this link. We have a site that we would love to kind of migrate our dashboards to, just so you have a one-stop place to go to. But if you ever, as we continue to find little nooks and crannies of time to move our things here, www.tcoedata.org is a URL that we've accessed, and we'll be hopefully sooner rather than later populating it with data sets, visualizations, commentaries, things like that we hope will be of use to you and many of your colleagues. I am going to go ahead and go there now. We're going to take a look at the CCI data two ways. One, we'll look at this very simple dashboard, and then we'll also go on to the California school dashboard where this data is currently housed. So let me actually go there now. So if I click on that link, it'll take me straight to that page. But if you do happen to go straight to the TCOE data site, you'll end up on this like kind of generic landing page that we will update, and you'll see the link to that data set right over here on the right. There's a few other things that we've kind of hidden away just because we need to do a lot of work here.
Real quick, Javier, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
I just wanted to clarify and prepare. Are they only considering like coursework, or are there any other factors than prepared?
For College and Career Indicator?
Yeah.
Well, when we get into the to this dashboard, you'll kind of see all of the different factors that go into determining whether a student is prepared, approaching prepared, or not prepared. It is a tangled web of like options. I'm sure that anybody here that's kind of like can attest. It's basically like, has the student met A through G? Like, how did they do on their CASP? Do they have the state seal of biliteracy? Is there combinations of things that kind of get them prepared, approaching prepared, or not prepared? But there's a lot. That list continues to grow, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit. But this dashboard basically just zeroes in on just overall prepared or approaching prepared. And we've zeroed in on the districts of Tulare Kings. We also have the state of California included, just because it's nice to kind of have a reference point sometimes. And right now, we could change this if you guys would like to select multiple, but right now we have it limited so that you can pick one district at a time and only from our two counties. The other thing that we can do here is, obviously you see the school district. I'll show you why this is kind of important in a second, but we have every student group that's reported included here. So these are the official values rounded to the nearest whole number for met, or not met, prepared. And if you roll over, you get a little statement that kind of puts it in plain language. So in the state of California, 33,822 of 45,681, which is 74% of students identified as Asian, were counted as prepared. And then you also get the numbers for approaching prepared and not prepared for that same subgroup. If I come over here to the approaching prepared bar, you get kind of a similar sentence to the last sentence of the other one, but you get the actual percentages as well there. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm just going to pick somebody that has a lot of schools. Visalia has a lot of schools, and so I'll kind of pick on them. So what you'll see here is the student groups end up getting displayed according to like just order. Like it does some kind of calculations behind the scenes, and it kind of orders them according to like highest to lowest. And then you also see all of the high schools within Visalia Unified, including Visalia Unified. What I did to call out the LEA is put these two little stars in front, and then I also wrote LEA on the back for good measure. And so you can kind of see every school in the district, including a lot of their alternative sites, as well as the district itself, compared student group by student group. We decided to do it with student group as the first metric and then school district as the second one, so you can kind of compare a student group across your schools instead of the other way around. But that's a very easy switch to make if you guys would prefer it the other way. The other thing is like these things will kind of color up based on quintiles. So for prepared, you can get anywhere from 0 to 100%. Every 20%, you kind of get a little bit of a different color. So it goes from a dark green to a light green to like this gray green. So those are the first 60%. Each band is 20%. And then the same thing for approaching prepared, although hardly anybody has like the deep red because although we do have a few deep blues. But that's just to kind of simplify visually, seeing like, okay, where are things standing? And then obviously you see the percent there. So this basically just gives a very simple display of just who's prepared, who's approaching prepared, and how that might how that looked for last year's data. And again, this is one of those tricky things, and we're actually kind of wondering like how you guys are planning on contending with the fact that we have a relatively full data set for last year's seniors because they took the CASP a year prior, but this year's seniors were juniors last year and they took no such thing. And so we have no idea what this is going to look like next year, but it'll look different. We know that. And so anyway, so this is the college and career indicator. We know that this kind of drives a lot of the work that has been done in partnership through the TCCC network, and has been a driving force in how we address the needs of our high school students. To get more of the details, Jennifer was asking, if we go to the California School Dashboard and we pick a district, I would pick Tulare County, but like there's like no data there. So I am going to just pick a district. And since they're our largest and they aggregate a lot of things, I'm going to just pick on Visalia. Apologies there if need be, but let me go back. So I'm at californiaschooldashboard.org, which I think you guys are all very familiar with. And then I'm just searching a school. And I am actually just going to call up the district. We can also call up individual schools. The district doesn't necessarily give me the breakdown of all the districts within it, like our dashboard does. You just get the overall district view. But what you will see here is how all of the various pieces, all the various elements that go into making up the college and career indicator kind of come into play. So if I go to view additional reports, you'll kind of see this kind of odd sterile looking page, and you'll see two things here, like the college and career measure report and the graduation rate additional report. That's all there is here right now for 2020. If I go back to 2019, you'll see all the 5x5s and all the fun stuff that they usually put on here for the dashboard. But since we don't have that for this year, we're basically limited to what is being reported, what is being published. I'm going to go ahead and click into College and Career Measures report by hitting submit. And then we get this report. And this is another one of those things that we'd love to get your insights, because we've always found this to be like a very, there's a lot of information here, but making sense of it has always been kind of tricky. And I'll kind of reference why in just a second. So we start off by getting a detail of counts of student groups throughout the selected district. And you also get percentages of CCI level for each student group. Again, percentage prepared, approaching prepared, not prepared. This is what the other little dashboard was reporting, right? You also get a breakdown of ethnicities, and this is where it kind of gets a little interesting, because this is the number and percent of prepared students in the cohort by race, ethnicity, and program participation. So this is literally, if we just look at the slice of students that are prepared, how many of them were African American, American Indian, Asian, Filipino, which is a really interesting kind of way of doing it, because this 1.7% doesn't necessarily mean that 1.7% of your African American students were prepared. It means that of your prepared students, 1.7% of them were prepared. It's a really kind of, it sounds subtle, but it like changes the complete nature of like what we have there. If we look up here, we can see that the African American students were prepared at a rate of 42.9%, but they only made up 1.7% of the student group. The thing that kind of complicates this is like, they don't tell me what percentage of the population they made up initially. They just give me the counts. So we can certainly calculate like, okay, are African Americans more than 1.7%, less than 1.7% of the overall population? Calculatable, if it's of interest to you, like might be worth doing, but the whole here is the number of prepared students, and the part is the students of each demographic group. It's an interesting way to report. What is more interesting though are the little heat maps that come underneath, which is how did students meet prepared? And this is, Jennifer, where you get that long list of all the different ways that students might be meeting prepared for the college and career indicator. So by student group and for all students in this first column, how many of them did it via the CTE pathway completion, smarter balanced assessment, college credit courses, advanced placement. We don't have any IB schools, so this one's usually zeroed out. A through G completion is usually really hot for prepared, because that is like, not only is it one way, but it's a necessary component for lots of other things. And there's a pretty long list. You'll notice a lot of new things down here at the bottom as well. Leadership, military science, I think was there last year, but pre-apprenticeship, registered and non-registered, the same for DAS schools, state and federal job programs. Like a lot of these are brand new. So some interesting things to look at there. If we scroll down further, then you get a percentage breakdown of the students by demographics of those that were approaching prepared. So our new whole is the students approaching prepared. So in this case, there's 314 students. And then we're counting of these 314, what percentage of them were each of the different subgroups that we're looking at here. And then you get a brand new heat map that shows, okay, if they're approaching prepared, like what boxes were the kids ticking? And what's interesting to me is like, you still see quite a few, it's the smarter balance box is pretty hot, but the A through G row has completely cooled down. Like you hardly see students who like meet A through G and don't also do the other things that are required to meet or to be prepared. So generally that's if a kid's meeting A through G, that seems to be like a good foundational condition. They're probably also doing something else that's getting them there. And then finally, we have the last one, which is the breakdown of students not prepared by race, ethnicity, and program participation. So we encourage you guys to kind of take a look. And we did want to kind of open it up for discussion in terms of like either what this might mean in terms of your storytelling at your districts for this year. Like, are these things that are shared with the board, but also like for next year, like what in the world are we going to do? Like, is there anything to do? Knowing that there's no accountability, but like being able to attend to like important matters, things that you guys want to do. Like, how do we get back on track after COVID? And there's that. And Lori, anything to add there?
Yeah, I didn't know if anyone had any particular comments that they wanted to make just about how you're looking at data in the future, but I know, knowing that that's not you know, it's going to look very different. It's not on the horizon. It like takes away that sense of urgency when you're looking at this data. And so one of the things that that we've talked about that we still feel like is really powerful is just being able to take this time, knowing you have this gift of time to sort of break from this accountability. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Javier. And looking at this college and career indicator, which I know you all look at all the time in many different ways, but really that approaching prepared, I think this is a great time to sort of dig in and sort of see, you know, where we miss those opportunities, right? Those approaching prepared kids, like Javier was just showing with the example of Visalia, there's lots of kids that did a decent job on their SBAC. And then you start to look at your system then and think like, what could we have done? Where did we miss the mark with those specific kids? You guys have the luxury to like, look, okay, we have these 70 kids who did well on the SBAC. Who are they? And then you can look them up and see what were they missing? How were they in a CTE pathway? Did they get just a certain, you know, did they only go so far? What could have been in place in our system to help them be completers? If not CTE, A through G, did they just get a D in one class and decide not to make it up? Like, where were those missed opportunities, which could have been significant changes in your dashboard and those numbers, reporting those numbers. Again, you know, like I said, that urgency isn't quite there to like, how do we fix this problem now? But this may be our last set of data to really kind of dig into those transcripts, maybe have conversations with the counselors who know those students pretty well and say like, what could have been done for this kid? And it can be really informative moving forward when those things start to come back on track. Because like Javier said, we don't know if we have a shortened version of an SBAC, will they plug that into a dashboard and not hold anyone accountable, but we'll still show some numbers? And you know, obviously we're not just trying to put these things in place to show like improvement for board members or community. Yes, we want those things and that's what it does. But at the same time, all of these things are in place because we want our kids to be successful. And we're saying like, given this multitude of opportunities, helping to push them in all of these directions is going to help them be more successful when they move on to community college or a university. So I don't know if you guys have spaces for this built in or you know, with distance learning and everything going on, but if there's an opportunity to sit down with your teams and your counseling teams and kind of dig into this, I think you know, our feeling is the rewards will really pay off in the future when these things come back online. Is anyone doing anything like that in your districts right now with this information?
I guess I'll start with, you know, when the dashboard came about and they told us how they're going to measure the kids, I sat down with our learning director and said, all right, how do we get these kids on track to be prepared? And so we decided that the easiest way for us to do that is get them on the A to G track, because we don't want to lean on SBAC scores. Like, we feel like we don't have as much control about SBAC scores that we do on the courses that they take. So we, you know, try to go the angle of the A to G and then adding one more component to it. And then we just keep an eye on it and make sure it just keeps going up. But that's about all that we do with it.
So I'll share for Woodlake. I know we have an Excel spreadsheet that we keep of all those measures, and our IT person set it up for it to automatically tag if they are meeting it using all the combination measures or the requirements. So we pull that early on to try to see generally at the end of their junior year, beginning of senior year, and we're trying to check to make sure. I mean, we're checking A through G throughout, but we have counseling meetings and we go over like where our kids are and how can we get this kid to meet CCI. So that's fairly new. We've only started doing this is only our second year. But I have that template. I know I've shared it with a few schools because as a blank template where it automatically will populate if they're prepared, which is kind of nice. It's very convenient.
And Carmita, do you put those numbers in early as soon as you get those preliminary SBAC scores also, so that the counselors can go in and make changes if, you know, necessary when they start?
Yeah, generally I pull it in August once SBAC scores are in August or September, or yeah, somewhere around there, because then I can pull the SBAC and see if they already met it with their scores. And so what I do is I have an all senior class, and then I do tabs for like AP. I do a tab for college credit. So I'm tracking it on a separate sheet. And then once I can see, like, for example, after fall semester, I see, okay, what kids completed a dual enrollment course. So our college credit courses, I had to go through and see which ones have completed a college course. And I can put in, okay, they completed one. So we do it for college credit, it's 1 or a 2. And a 1, so because the 1 is a combination factor, and then the 2 is the MET. So after they complete one course, we put in 1. After they complete a second course, it goes 2, and then they're automatically prepared. As a 1, they can be a combination, but so we're tracking it after each semester, and grades get posted so that we can see where our students. So we can see, like, as of right now, what I have as CTE completers, how many students are meeting CCI, or where they're at, if they're on track to meet it. So that we can make sure that they stay in that course if it's because of a CTE combination measure, or A through G, that kind of stuff, and make sure that they're taking the right courses. So it's a lot of work, and it does take a lot of time, but it's definitely worth trying to make sure we catch those that, you know, we've missed it by one class, you know, 1 or 2 classes, because that unfortunately happens all too often. And so we're able to catch that a lot sooner.
You know, listening to Carmita talk, how she said that is a lot of work. We can probably be leaning on our SISs because, you know, we use Aries, and they're usually pretty good about, you know, what's up and coming and what we need to know. They build in a dashboard for that. And so, you know, it would be nice if they would build that in so we're able to track it that way, so you're not having to do all that extra work.
Yeah, it's actually the first year, the setup year was the harder part, but it's actually not, it just takes time. But I mean, we do it for A through G because our SIS does do, we have Illuminate right now, but we're moving to Aries. And it does do like the A through G tracking, but the part for us, Illuminate does not catch validations. So like math validations or foreign language validations, we have to manually override that. I don't know if Aries has that. So that's one of the things. So I still have to go through and look, okay, you know, can they be validated for math, or can they be validated for foreign language, and so forth.
So I have a question as a non-K-12 person. What's the definition of a, I know what A through G is. What's the definition of a CTE completer, and what's SBAC?
Thanks for the question, Andrew. So a CTE completer, Laura, you might be better equipped to answer.
Well, I was going to say, there's a lot of CTE experts in this room right now who probably can answer that. Go ahead. I see Carmita's unmuted. Go ahead.
So for us, I mean, well, for anyone, CTE is just a pathway completion that provides like industry sector skills. So each school has their own pathway. Generally, it's at least a 2-year, minimum of 2 years, 2-year courses, but it can be up to 4. So it depends on each school site and how they set up their pathways. And then what was your other question?
I'm familiar with pathways, so thanks for that. But what's SBAC?
Yeah, so SBAC is the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. Like that's the mandated assessment that students in 3rd through 8th grade and grade 11 have to take in math and language arts. And there's also a science test that they'll be taking. Last year it was suspended, so there's no scores for last year. And I think it also does the the thing that students used to take an extra assessment for to kind of show readiness in math or language arts, I think it does that now too. But that's effectively what it is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a key component. It's like one of the things, if you do really well on both, you've like already, you just, by doing none of the other things, like you can be considered prepared. And so that's why it's a big one in here. And even though this is what I guess would be termed autopsy data, right? You know, it's still our thought that this approaching prepared kids, like even though we put all these measures in place, we still missed a few of the kids, right? The kids that are doing pretty well, and it can really be informative about like little things that can be changed in the system. Maybe it is just bringing on one more dual enrollment course on campus. I know Woodlake is bringing on some new online in conjunction counseling courses, and something like that can be a game changer if you have a significant enough population of kids and that's widely available to them to take. That can cover and be that second thing for these kids that fall in this approaching prepared. So anyways, we just encourage you to kind of dig into that approaching prepared heat map and see if you can go down to student level and really look at that. And then if you get information from there and you can share back with the group, I think that's one of the benefits of us all coming together here, is that you might have something that you learn from your data that you can share with other people, and it can enlighten what, you know, might be some good steps moving forward in the system. So I know we're getting short on time here. We did want to just go through and do some upcoming events with you guys. We've got the core virtual meeting coming up in a couple days, I guess, right? January 28th, and their core spring. Oh my gosh, tomorrow. After the counselor conference was done, and I don't even know what day it is anymore. So there you go. And then the core spring convening is a big one, March 18th. Definitely put that one on your calendar. It's an all-day training, the registration link. And we will, again, put this slide deck. We could probably put that registration link. Oh, it's on the agenda, sorry. So all of those things are on the agenda. We do, if you weren't able to make Steph Evergreen for the first training, this is a more in-depth training for data analysts, and you actually get to bring some of your own data that you can dig into and work on those visualizations. For this group in particular, it'd be really powerful to attend. Again, the registration link is on the agenda. You know about our meeting next time. I noticed that the Google, I will be sending out an invite to you guys for that February 24th meeting. And you can go ahead and forward that invitation to anyone you feel like needs to be at that, that ETS, that testing training for our next meeting. Oh, and we do have our TCOE Learning and Leadership Forum, and that one's in a couple days with Pat Greco. So please join us for that. And thank you guys for being here today. It was a great discussion. And stick around if you have any questions, anything that you want to ask about. If you're one of the CVNIC schools, you can stick around and ask questions for that as well. We'll stay on for a few minutes. Thank you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.